Matt can take over of it.
I mean, sure, as long as we get paid, I guess. Um, Meanwhile, while I'm getting paid, I'll buy lots of guns and ammo. And
I, for one, welcome my robot overlords.
and what's that? Patriot meals, I think. I think they're like a meal prepper meal thing you can buy. Um, I don't know how much sodium is in there. It's got to be like 10 grams of sodium in a container or something. But um,
That's 1776 milligrams of sodium per serving.
that would be great if it was that would be, yes, totally perfect. What would be 1789?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Depends. um, but when you go to work out, when you're going to your pre-prescribed workout, do you have a warm-up method pre-selected?
I do. I like to do just we've kind of talked a little bit before, but like I like to do like a general warm up, just something to get the blood pumping, whether it's hopping on the elliptical, treadmill, whatever, jumping jacks, just something to get the blood going, loosen up the muscles, and then I'm a big fan of kind of almost pyramiding up with the lift that I'm going to do. John Meadows, I guess ROP John Meadows always had a good thing with like the feeder sets that I love that I use. So for instance, if I'm doing like dumbbell chest press, like the way he always prescribed it, I enjoyed. It was, do like 20 reps with like 20-pound dumbbells. Like if I'm going to end up like doing like 8 reps with 100-pound dumbbells, 20 reps with the or yeah, 20 reps with 20s, then like 45 for 15, like 65 for 6, like eventually to where you could do a whole lot more with that. You're getting blood pumping to the working muscles, and then there you go. So that's typically what I do with my main like compound lift when I'm starting a particular workout. And then kind of go from there. So that's yeah, easy general warm up, then like a very specific to the lift that I'm doing.
Yeah, I've been using the same kind of dynamic method warm-up for years now, where I hit the same 6 phases of movement with uh, push, press, pull, hinge, squat, carry. Those are the 6 phases of movement to make sure that blood flowing is everywhere. I am 37 now, so I can't just jump in and start lifting like I did when I was in my 20s. Um,
Even then, you shouldn't have. Like we've talked about before, like having the knowledge now, like you look back and like it's a wonder that you don't kill yourself. Like same
yeah.
thing, like we talk about like supplements and stuff that people used back in the day.
Hey man, that DMAA, that stuff was great. Um, Killed some people, but it didn't kill us. So all right.
We did okay.
Yeah, we also followed the directions that said never take more than 2 scoops. And people did, and then those people didn't, not all of them made it.
Those directions there for a reason.
Yeah, it was like all bold, all caps, red. It's like all red letters on the back. Like it was like, do not do this thing. Um, but um, as far as now, like I've been thinking a lot about more my long-term goals, especially with the strength training, because I still haven't got to 900, and so I want to get back there. And I do believe that I could get there and further. I think I could actually get back to um, the 1200 total that I had when I was like 20 something. I think I could do it. Um, and uh, Thinking about that, I think the warm up that I've been doing has to change. And I used to do the same thing that Matt does prior to doing the dynamic phase method stuff, where I did the feeder sets and the pyramid system. So pyramiding, as in the reps can go from a high rep to a low rep, or vice versa, in your warm up sets. So one of the things I looked at was also the winning warm up method. So Matt Wenning is a previous or current world record holder in the like raw. So raw would be sleeves and a belt total. The guy benched 700 pounds, squatted like almost 1,100 pounds, like did all these crazy things. And one of his things that he reached out to Flex Wheeler, a pro bodybuilder who, if you go back and look at his stuff, that guy was elite Jack on the stage of the Olympia and the Arnold. And he had said that his hardest warm up, like his hardest sets for himself, but what he liked the most was sets of 25. And so the winning warm up method is picking something that's really easy to do, like what Matt said, like a 5-pound dumbbell or something like that, and doing 25 reps of it in various angles for whatever action you're about to do. So if you're doing the bench press, getting a 5-pound dumbbell and doing a neutral grip, 25 reps, doing so, then doing a bench press grip, and then changing the angle, and then changing the angle again. So do that like 4 times. So you get like 4 sets of 25s, and you've gotten all the blood flow in that you need to do for training the bench press. And so that's why I think that my warm up has to change, because I need to get better at specific lifts to be better prepared.
Absolutely. And I also love Wenning's method of the doing the warming up the antagonist muscle as well. Like you always, yeah, like because I do that at times too. Like I think I'm as guilty as anybody else. Like you're in a time crunch. Like I work out before work, so it's like, what's the one thing that you can not do? You can cut down on time. It's like, well, I don't have to properly warm up, even though I'll preach that to everybody. It's like, do as I say, not as I do. But it's like, okay, I can cut down on that. But in an ideal world, yeah, I've got 10, 15 minutes to warm up, and like warming up like the posterior deltoids and the lats in anticipation of the bench press, I think is a fantastic method as well with that same rep scheme.
Yeah. And I think that might be more important than the other direction. That makes sense. So the antagonist muscle is going to be something that's more of a stabilizer for whatever lift that you're trying to do. So if you're doing the bench press we use, so making sure that your lats are correct and warmed up, and your posterior deltoid is warmed up, and you do the cardio piece that Matt was talking about the very beginning, just get the total body blood flow moving, because if you're doing a bench press properly, it's more of a total body lift anyways. And getting all of those antagonist muscles warmed up and primed, because you're going to end up bracing with those muscles to do your primary lift. If it's the bench press, if it's squats, making sure that you have warmed up your hamstrings and glutes, which are not typically primary movers on a squat.
Yeah, like I've talked about that before, just like anecdotally, like with my knee issues, like doing just some high rep hamstring curls before squats, like I can literally squat pain free doing that. Whereas if I don't, it doesn't feel great for the first few sets. And if you're only doing like 3, 4 working sets, like I'm hurting the entire time. Or I can do 3, 4 warm up sets with the hamstring curls, and all of a sudden my squats are pain free and more effective.
Yeah, and your numbers might go down, but long term, your numbers are going to be higher.
It's actually crazy, like doing that, because I would think the same thing. It's like, okay, like don't need to like pre-exhaust the hamstrings. Numbers have not gone down. Like
Oh,
doing that, yeah, numbers have actually maintained or even increased, having the proper warm up for the hamstrings. Go figure.
yeah. Usually, so you do low bar squats, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I do them too. Because the other thing I like to do also is if it's the reverse, if you feel like when you do squats, you never feel your hamstrings or glutes, that means you're too quad dominant.
Which is very common.
Yeah. And you should pre exhaust your quads when you're doing your squats. A lot of people, I think, a lot of people that have like really skinny legs that don't get bigger with squats, I think that's their issue. Is that they're they need to pre-exhaust their quads in order to help everything grow. That makes sense. Um, because if you pre-exhaust your quads, you and that's pre-exhausting your quads would be like doing leg extensions that are difficult. So now
Right. Like actually have like working sets of leg extensions, not just a warm up.
that's the difference between like warming up and pre-exhaustion, right? So pre-exhaustion is you actually did something that was like hard and like a training kind of thing to do, whereas warm up is what it says. It's just warming up the muscle. You're not doing a working set of something. So the difference between like working sets and warm up sets switches to a level of difficulty. This goes back to, we've previously talked about it before, our rate of perceived exertion. Like in RPE of 10 is your most maximum exertion, right? That's be your absolute max. So if you're warming up, that should be like an RPE of like 4, 3, 2, 1. Like it's not super difficult for you. But when you get to the RPE ranges of 6 to 9, those are all working sets. That does that make sense? Does that make sense to you, Matt?
Yeah, that makes sense. So our RPE is like, yeah, so arbitrary, but like it is like I like it. I always joke with people like, yeah, we're gonna use the super scientific method of like what
How do
do
you feel? Yeah. How do you feel today? Very scientific.
yeah, because yeah, you working in a clinical setting, like you know all about that. Like, what's your pain like?
Yeah. The pain
Point
scale 1 to 10.
point on this chart what your face is. Like, always love that one. I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Do you
pick one.
remember the blog Hyperbole and a Half?
Yes.
She had a pain scale thing on there, and her 10 was you're dying, you might have Ebola. And she's she thought
I
you
like
should
that. That's
change the face so that way it looked like somebody's eyes were bleeding on the 10, so they could say, I'm not just sad, I might be dying, I have Ebola and I'm bleeding out of my eyes. So that would be
but
10.
see, like I always worry about the pain scale, like in like a clinical setting, like if I'm in the hospital, because I have a very high pain threshold.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, are they like my 4 is much different, I feel, than like a lot of people's 4, you know? But
Yeah.
like that's I feel like what I'm in a lot of times. So I'm like, I feel like I should bump this up so they actually can equate it and know that I am actually in a lot of pain.
We talk about that at the hospital all the time. Like I completely agree with you. Where people has different levels of perceived pain. I think the best example I have off the top of my head is we had a patient that was a firefighter, and they had been in a traumatic accident. You know, they're a firefighter, and they weren't scoring. Sorry, they weren't scoring very high on the pain scale. Um, and so somebody had to, like, their family member had to come in and tell them, like, we all know that you're in horrible pain. It's okay to say that you're hurt.
Right. Because like that's the way it was like when I shattered my ankle, had to have it completely reconstructed, like literally obliterated it, foot's hanging off backwards. Like on my scale, that was a 7. On most people's scales, 1 to 10, it's a 20. You know,
Right. Yeah.
like
And that's where RP can be different for everybody, but that's what's important to think about when you're in the gym and you're getting warmed up and getting into your working sets. That is this something that's really difficult for you? Like if you did um 5 reps of a weight, do you think you could do 20 more reps at that same weight, or could you only do 2? You know, if you can only do 2, you're probably closer to an RP of 8. If you do like 20, you're probably closer to like an RP of 2 or 3.
and I'm dealing with the opposite right now, being in the middle of a deload week.
You're
It would,
forcefully at RP of 5.
oh yeah, it's awful. I hate it. And like what was kept going through my head today is like because I've told you this story. I think I told you off air. Like I was talking to somebody and she was like, yeah, she's like, I like strength training because it's very peaceful. Like it's easy. And I'm like, as I'm in the middle of doing overhead presses today, I'm like, this is the way a lot of the general population works out. And I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Like, let me push this a little bit more.
I sent Matt this meme earlier that was Anakin Skywalker progressing to Darth Vader, and it's about time spent in a gym. And I'll post it when we post this episode. But
Yeah, I feel like we need to post more like BS memes and stuff on on our social media. Like, we try to put out like quality content without enough just BS.
we'll start. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna have a lot more BS anytime soon. We're gonna have a lot more fun, a lot more fun. So you guys get to know us a lot better. But day one is working out for the health benefits, and then 6 months in, you start getting addicted to the pump, and then 1 year, which this picture is from episode somewhere in the beginning of episode 3, right? So at the end of episode 3, he turns to Darth Vader, and it's 1 year. He's mentally dependent on going to the gym, and then 2+ years in, you have joint pain, a caffeine addiction, and body dysmorphia, which is not entirely true. But I do have the joint pain, and I've always had the dysmorphia. That was a normal thing. We talked about that before. Um,
And you don't have caffeine addiction,
I am not a.
Mr. 1 gram of caffeine a
It
day.
sounds like a lot because you say it's a gram, but it's really not that much. Like a lot of people say,
I was talking to a friend the other day that I've actually written programs for him before, and like we were talking about caffeine consumption, and like I was talking about like how I take in like 600 milligrams a day. He's like, oh my God. I was like, what?
my business partner is it a gram a day.
And I was like, Ryan does like a gram, like, and he's an RD, so like.
I'll tell you, the toxicity level was way up there. I'd be perfectly fine. But as far as it goes for warming up, I like to have my caffeine 30 to 45 minutes before I work out. So that way it's like,
Same, yeah.
boom, ready to go. Most pre-workouts that you buy out there are a lot of caffeine anyway. So
Yeah, that's really all they are. Like, yeah.
but,
Little caffeine, little beta alanine, good to go. It's a little arginine.
yeah, L-arginine. L. Got to make sure that it works. Either way, little tidbit. Let's see. I don't think I have very much to add onto the warm-ups other than make sure that you're warming up for what you're doing. Like
Yeah,
if
but it's very specific to the activity. Like I said, like I like the first compound lift I'm gonna do, and then warming up the antagonist muscles I think is great.
yeah,
Pre-exhausting if you need to. Boom. That's I think we just like
and
encompassed everything.
warm up before you stretch. Do not stretch before you warm up.
Oh God, is that like myth still out there? Of like, 'cause I used to always joke when I taught a personal training certification. I was like talking about that same thing. And I was always looking at people like, you walk in the gym, people like, "Yep, I'm warming up." You're doing the posterior delt stretch, like, "Oh, I got this warm up on." Like, if I walk in, even try to do that when it was like 25 degrees this morning, having not warmed up with my broken down shoulders, like I would just snap something. Like,
Unless it breaks on for sure, it's gonna crack. You're gonna hear it snap. uh, when I work at my random part-time job, they do the night crew has like stretches they do before they do anything. I'm like, have you guys done anything to like get warmed up? And there's something like yawning, like, oh, I just got here. And I'm like, that's not good.
yawning's not a warm up.
Walk around at least, like get some blood flow, move your arms while you're walking, then start doing your stretches. But either way, all of you out there, hopefully this helps you warm up a little bit better, a little bit more specifically to what you're trying to do and achieve. And every week, like we say, maximize every bite.
Maximize every rep.